Do I need to do an introduction at all? No need, Have you all, like, everybody knows my website, knows probably part of the Facebook group. I see some of my alumni, people who have attended my training before here. So I think we can skip an intro other than my name is Jason. And that's my, okay, the laser pointer doesn't work on the TV screen, that's why. All right, so I started my blog in 2014 after I started selling at the end of 2013. Being a former history teacher, I thought, okay, I might as well chronicle what I'm writing, because every person who has made a long-term impact in the world, right, actually is because they put what they do into writing. So I thought, all right, maybe I'll start blogging about it, and then if you all have read my blog, it's actually done in chapters, because the idea was then I copy the entire blog and then I publish it as a book. So that's Jason Tay Online. But today and in the beginning of 2020, I want to just talk about a few things, some things that I observe. You know, when you do business and you do e-commerce, I think it's important to understand what's going on. A lot of, maybe just a quick survey, how many of y'all are already selling online? Oh, most of y'all. Who here has no experience like selling anything online, or you don't have a retail business? Anybody? Okay, a couple, no worries. So if you already have some experience, then I'll probably just skip some of the stuff. All right, here we go. One of the most common questions I always get is people ask me, is it too late? Is e-commerce very saturated? And I just pulled this latest thing off the Federal Reserve Economic Data. That's what FRED stands for. The latest census that they have down here, it's up to Q3 of 2019. And up to Q3 of 2019, e-commerce makes up 11.2% of total retail sales. Do you think it still has room to grow? Yeah, it has a lot more room to go. I think e-commerce is just in its early stages. And one of the reasons why it has a lot more room to grow is because of the people, the shoppers, the people who buy stuff. If you're familiar with these terms, anybody here a baby boomer? Okay, no need to put up your hand. I'm what they would, you're familiar with this, like Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, or Gen Z. Okay, I'm a Gen Xer. How many of y'all here are Gen X? So born in late 60s, 70s. All right. Anybody here a Gen Y or millennial? That means you're born plus minus 5 years of year 2000. Okay, several. Anybody here a Gen Z or Gen Z? Nobody, yeah? Oh, I'm surprised some of the ladies didn't put up their hand. Just to pretend to be like 18. Okay, so I have a daughter who's in Gen Z, born in like 2002. And you have if you go online and you read some of the latest articles like Forbes, Fortune magazine, etc., they talk about how in the next few years, Gen Z, right, they are now in tertiary stage of life, where they are in college in the US or university or polytechnic kind of thing, as we would call it in Singapore. And these guys, they are going to start going into the workplace and start having consumption power in the next couple of years. So my daughter is 18. You can ask my wife, what does she spend the most time on or with? Yeah, it's this thing. Yeah, they are what we call digital natives, meaning they have never experienced a world without the internet. They grew up with the internet. To them, it's more natural to look for something on a phone than to walk into a store or to talk to people. That's where they start everything. So Gen Z in the next few years is going to make up 40% of the consumer base. in the world. And so this graph is going to continue to shoot up. I always tell people the story of, some of you have heard this story, so pardon me, but I always compare my daughter to my mother. So my mother, because we spend half our time in Australia, so when my wife is there and then I fly back and forth, she'll ask me to buy like curry fish head paste or whatever stuff to bring to Australia. And so I asked, she said, you have to buy the one that your mother uses, because my mother is like peranakan. So what will happen is, I went and asked my mother, what's the sauce that you use for like your pong teh, your curry or whatever. And then she said, you have to buy this Gimson brand or Jimson brand or whatever. Yeah, I see some of you all nodding your head. Manwai is nodding her head. And so, and then I asked my mom, so where can I buy this? I'm flying off in like 3 days, right? And she said, oh, you can't buy it in Singapore, you have to buy it in Malaysia. And I'm like, what? I have to go to Johor to buy it? She said, no, you can't even find it in Johor, only in like Penang and KL. I'm like, what? So I sort of didn't believe her. I whipped out my phone and I opened Red Mart. You all know Red Mart? And then I put in Gimson. I did the search, and then like 10 or 20 different of these Gimson sauces and pastes appeared. So I went to my 79-year-old mother and I said, hi, look, I can buy like everything here and they can deliver by 8 a.m. tomorrow. Then my mom said like, oh really, can you order one of each for me also? So that's my mom. She has never booked a Grab ride or any kind of private hire vehicle on her phone. She still calls Comfort when she needs a taxi. She has never bought anything online. Only recently, she did her first ever Food Panda order. And I can tell you it was a nightmare, like trying to teach her how to do the order, like, how do you enter your credit card details? Like, what? Don't understand. Whereas my daughter was 10 years old one day, and I opened the mailbox, and inside the mailbox was a package with her name. So I bring the package to her room and I said, how come you ordered this thing online? Like, you have a package. I'm like, how did you pay for it? You don't have a credit card? I'm like, do you steal my wallet? And she said, oh, no, I ordered it from like my classmate. I'm like, what, you mean the girl who sits like behind you in class? She's like, yeah. And I said, then how did you pay for it? Or you just pass her cash in class? And she said, no, I mailed her $2. And then she mailed me the thing. In those days, it was a loom band like 10 years ago. You all know what loom bands are? And I said, wow, so how did you order from your classmate? And she said, from her Instagram blog store. So my 10-year-old daughter 10 years ago, being a digital native, found it, the way that she bought something was to go onto Instagram, look at what people are posting, even though the person sits next to her like 5 days a week. And then she would mail cash and say like, you know, you're not supposed to mail cash, right? In case like you tempt the postman. Then she said, oh, don't worry, I folded it in a piece of paper so that the postman cannot see the cash. And I'm like, oh, okay, at least you're smart. But that's how they order, and that's the difference between Gen Z or Gen Z and like my mom, who's a pre-baby boomer. Okay, but you understand the customer base. Right now, for the majority of you, half of you put up your hands, you are Gen X, and then maybe 30% of you here are Gen, the rest are like Gen Y or millennial. We are quite used to ordering online. How many of you shop online? Woo. Okay. I just bought a bicycle. I ordered it from Decathlon, and I live very near a Decathlon, like I can walk there. But I ordered it online because I can get 4.5% shop back if I order online and then they deliver to me. Seriously. Plus my miles card, then I get like a few hundred miles. And then I ordered my bike light off Lazada, and it shipped from Taiwan like yesterday. It's probably going to arrive tomorrow. We just ordered a wall clock for our house, and I also ordered it online. I don't know what else. So lots of stuff now we order online. What? Our furniture also was ordered from HipVan online. Yep. Okay. So that's understanding the trend. It will continue to go up for many years to come. And because of this generational thing that's happening with the demographic. Next, let's look at what statisticians are predicting. All right, so if you look, everything I have references. US Census Bureau. This is actually, Kasana is a bank. Statista is a highly reputable statistics resource. So I'm not just making stuff up, okay? I don't make stuff up. Everything I do, I like to be grounded in data, in facts. So what's CA? I'm going to look at CAGR, just going to highlight a couple. CAGR is the compound annual growth rate. In other words, every year, how many more, the percentage increase in online sales. We're talking about e-commerce trends. So all these numbers are with regards to online retail, okay? So in the US, they project that in the next 5 years, this year, and then plus another 4 years after this year, they project that e-commerce retail is going to grow by 9.3%. I think it's per year. Yeah, so over 5 years. Statista. There, year 2020 to 2024. Every country is 2020 to 2024. And then ARPU is how much an average online shopper spends per year. Okay, so average revenue per user or per shopper. So you can see out of the various countries, I have a few other countries that I'm sort of interested in, like Indonesia and India in particular. But you can see which from these 6, why do I highlight these 6 countries? It's because, number one, Amazon is on all of them, or in all of these countries, which makes it easy for me if I want to expand internationally, because all I have to do is list the stuff on Amazon in that country, and Amazon also provides the logistics, meaning I don't have to open a branch office, I don't have to hire people, I can simply like put stock with Amazon in their warehouses in these countries. All right, so which countries' customers spend the most money or are the highest value? Pretty obvious, right? US, and then second, you probably have Australia, and then Japan. The UK, sorry, also. UK second. I didn't include some countries, like Germany is also very high. Germany is actually Amazon's second biggest marketplace, or the country where they have the second largest retail sales after the US. Let's see. India is an interesting one. India, in most analysis, has the highest expected growth rate over the next 5 years in terms of e-commerce. Of course, it's starting from a very low base. Average online shopper spending $19.62 per year. But it's early days there, and it has a lot of room for growth. So like I mentioned, I spend a lot of time, I straddle between Australia and Singapore. I think Australia is interesting because the older generation, people like Gen X and Y, or Gen X especially, and baby boomers, they don't like to shop online. As in, they really do not like to shop online, almost to the point of detesting it, because they feel that they rather support the local small business. And to them, they see Amazon as a great, like, foreign, evil American company. But with the younger generation, that trend will change. For example, Amazon already has warehouses, a couple in Melbourne, one in Sydney, I think one in Brisbane, and they're opening one, I think this quarter in Perth. So they obviously are gaining traction there. Amazon has just opened a marketplace and has FBA in Singapore now. No Amazon staff here, right? Because they have been bugging me to like list on Amazon Singapore like for many, many months, like since before it was announced, they made me sign a non-disclosure agreement, blah, 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 list your thing first. So I like, okay, I registered my account with the Singapore thing, but till today I haven't listed anything because I feel like it's not really worth my effort. I rather put effort into like listing one new thing in the US just because the sales will be a lot more. The other thing that is not on the screen that is important to take note of is population size. Singapore's population is around 6 million, whereas like the US population, anybody knows, 327, 328 million. So it's 50 times larger plus than Singapore, meaning all things being equal, if you sell something in Singapore, you have 50 times more sales in the US just by virtue of population size. And the other thing is, you can see American consumers actually spend a lot more shopping online than the Singapore consumer. So it's not just 50 times more, it's 50 times more times 2.5. So it's like 125 times more. Okay. Next is understanding where the trend is going in terms of, as more and more people start to shop online, where do they go to shop online? This is a survey done by FeedVisor. FeedVisor is like an online e-services company. So they did a survey recently, and these are the results of the online shoppers that responded. 89% agree that they are more likely to buy products from Amazon than any other e-commerce site. This is American market. FYI, Amazon alone, as of end 2018, they already had 54% market share of all e-commerce retail sales in the US, meaning every other marketplace like eBay, etc., plus every other website, everybody's Shopify website, everybody's WordPress site, combined together does not even come, it's still less than Amazon, like everybody else combined. Next, it is estimated there are currently, it's probably more now, 103 million Amazon Prime customers or Amazon Prime subscribers for the .com, the US site. You all know what an Amazon Prime member is? Currently, who knows what's the Amazon Prime US membership annual fee? Don't know? $119 USD. So people are willing to pay $119 USD every year. Why? Because they can get now, a lot of them, 1-day shipping. It used to be 2-day shipping, free shipping with your Amazon Prime membership. Now in many addresses in the US, it's 1-day shipping. In some major capital cities, it's 1-hour shipping. I have friends living in the US, they observe that Amazon vans, trucks, and planes are popping out everywhere, popping up in their neighborhood. The Amazon Prime customer is very, very important thing to understand because, point number 3, 96% of Prime members say that they are more likely to buy from Amazon. In other words, almost all of them choose to buy from Amazon first. Because they already paid the $119 membership, like, I might as well not buy from eBay. All right. And 71%, this is not Prime members, this is like general shoppers, make a purchase on Amazon at least once a month. Over 40% of Prime members make purchases on Amazon at least once a week. Some of them make purchases on Amazon, 7% make purchases every single day. And then some of them make purchases like a few times a week, that means every 2 or 3 days. So the trend is, if you want to sell in the US, it's almost a no-brainer to leverage on Amazon because Amazon is a marketplace just like Q10 or Lazada. Anybody here can go create a seller account and list on it. The big difference is that Amazon provides warehousing and logistics so that your products become Prime eligible. All right, so based on some of those statistics or information, what should you do? And this is what I'm sort of like, I think through, okay, this would make sense. Number one, I always focus on fundamentals. Don't run after shiny objects. Don't look at the next like, oh, how do I like do some shady launch promo to manipulate the system so that I can get more reviews, blah, blah, blah. I don't do any of that. I've dabbled in a bit of that in the past, and I find number one, it's not sustainable, it's pointless, and it just doesn't make economic sense. So for me, I always focus on fundamentals, having like sound business, do sound business. So one of the fundamentals for me, really, especially when it comes to online sales and e-commerce, is you have to know keywords. This doesn't just apply to Amazon. It also applies to any kind of e-commerce, because all sales, when it comes to internet sales, always start with what do the consumers do when they want to buy something? They search. So the whole key is whether you can appear on page one of the search results, because if you don't, then you're just not going to get any sales, because nobody will see your product. So if you understand, you have to understand keywords. It's the foundation for everything related to e-commerce. If you understand keywords, for example, I have about close to 30 listings on Amazon. Currently, all my own branded products. I have 2 brands. I launched 8 new listings in October and November, around October 2019, so just 3 months ago. I think 5 out of 8 of those listings sold out within 2 to 4 weeks. My stock was about 100 to 300 units each, but every single one sold out within 2 to 4 weeks. Why does that happen? Versus like I hear so many stories of people, they send in like thousands of units and then they sell like 5 after 2 years. It's because I understand keywords and I understand how to search for keywords that people are using which have low or weak competition, meaning there's demand but there's no supply. So there's a market gap. People are looking for this thing but there's nothing to meet that demand. Then I come in and I provide a relevant product to meet their keyword search intent or their intention, what they're looking for. All right. Number 2, I want to encourage you all build a brand or build brands. Because if you are not building a brand, your business has no long-term value. I always tell people, if you're selling other people's products or just selling some generic non-branded product, your business essentially has no value. I used to have wholesale accounts with like close to 20 different companies. And then over time, maybe like 14 or 15 of them within a window of like 2 years, wrote to me and said, hi, we are going to sell online ourselves, so adios, amigo. And so in about 2016, I pivoted or shifted my business to focus on building my own brands and not bother to sell other people's stuff anymore. All right, so building brands is key, and it's not that difficult. Number 3, and another thing, building brands specific to Amazon is that Amazon is giving more and more power to brand owners. I've been on Amazon for 6 years, and I see the clear trend. I always tell people about 2018 or 2017, Amazon merged. Amazon used to have 2 competing departments. One is their retail arm, where they buy from people and then they retail the stuff. And then they also had another division, which was the marketplace, which is where they get third-party sellers like ourselves to sell on their platform. In the last 2-3 years, Amazon has merged the 2 divisions, and they've released one of the senior vice presidents. Ever since then, it's very, very clear that Amazon is focusing on growing the marketplace and scaling down on what they call vendor central, which was them buying wholesale and being the retailer themselves. Why? Because it's lower risk and it's lower capital and it's more profitable for them. At the same time, and then it's a win-win because that makes it better for us. So if you actually own a brand, I always tell people you will start to have brand superpowers. If you don't own a brand on Amazon, then you will just be a like low-level seller. But the moment you have a brand and your brand is trademarked, you will be able to do a lot more than like a regular seller, which we don't have time to go into today. But okay, number 3, diversify and scale. So my company name is actually a fusion of 2 words. It's a fusion of exponentially scalable. Because when I registered my company, I always wanted, my idea is whatever I do, I want it to be exponentially scalable. I don't want it to be like a dead end thing. So when it comes to diversity and diversification and scaling, there are 3 like main areas. Number 1 is products. Don't just like be limited to like one type of product or whatever. The second one is sources. So a lot of people, the most common thing I get is people always ask me about how do I source from China. You know, you don't have to source from China only. I started by sourcing in the US because when I first started in 2013, I was like, couldn't understand international shipping and what's EXW, what's FOB, what's all this custom stuff. So like, what? Why don't I just like get stuff that's made in the USA and sell in the USA? At least I have that premium kind of tag for all my products. And I also always use this example and tell people, for example, if you wanted to sell milk powder like baby formula, would you source it from China? The answer is obviously no. So who says you have to source everything from China? And so another great place to source is actually India. So Meghla will probably share a lot more about that. She's the expert. You all know Meghla used to be like a manager with Global Sources. That's how I first met her, when she invited me to speak at a Global Sources workshop like some years ago. And she has lived in China for 10 years and is originally from India, right? So she has like, she knows all the factories and all the sourcing stuff. That's her bread and butter. So she's going to talk more about how you can diversify your sourcing. Next is diversifying your sales channels. So although I started selling on Amazon in 2013, what happened was when my Amazon profits were enough to replace my former salary as a like secondary school teacher, then I thought, okay, it's time not to put all my eggs in the Amazon basket because Amazon is not your friend. You cannot have an Amazon business, okay? Please don't say and don't think I have an Amazon business because Amazon is not your business partner. They can suspend you like that. I have a friend, he has several 100,000 like followers. His YouTube channel was suspended by YouTube like that because you know on YouTube there's a report button on top and somebody can just click report and say like, oh, it's pornography, report, oh, there's child whatever abuse, and YouTube will just suspend you first and ask questions later. It's the same thing with Amazon. It's possible that a customer complains or competitor complains that you sell fake products and then Amazon suspends you first and then verifies, takes another 2 to 6 weeks to verify. So Amazon, you don't have an Amazon business. Amazon is just one sales channel. So for me, I then started building my own website. And then now we sell on, besides Amazon, we sell on our second highest sales is from our own website. If you understand the first fundamental keywords, then you'll be able to rank your products on Amazon. And then you apply the same things and you can rank on Google. I've never spent a single cent ever on Google ads. But if you search anything to do with goat milk soap or natural skincare, natural soap, you go Google now, you will see that any Google search, the top 5 results, at least 2 out of the 5 of the top 5 will be my website. And even the other links, like this morning I searched natural soap Singapore. Out of the top 5, 2 of them were our website pages. One was our homepage. Then there were another 2. One was Daily Vanity, which is a like magazine, and then another one was one of these, Shopee. But when you click into Shopee or Daily Vanity, in Daily Vanity, the number 1 recommended product is our product also. So effectively, we occupy 4 out of the top 5 slots. On Shopee, they had the 10 best skincare, natural skincare in Singapore or something like that. And then we were number 3 in that top 10 list on when you click through onto Shopee. So if you understand fundamentals, it's very easy to diversify. What other sales channels? In Singapore, it's pretty standard, like you have the Q10, Shopee, Carousel, Lazada, all are fairly easy to get on. All pale in comparison in terms of scale to the US. However, it still can generate a decent income, probably enough to replace one person's professional full-time salary at least, if you have some simple products. All right, number 4, if you have not done this, you need to learn to work with others. For example, what do I mean by that? It's you need to know what you're good at, and then stuff that you're not good at, don't try to do. For example, I think I'm pretty good at writing, and I'm pretty good at photography. Why? Because I've sent my products to professional photo studios in the US. I've tried a couple, and then they send me back 10 pictures of my product, and what kind of crap is this? So I take my handphone, I shoot my own pictures in the bathroom. And honestly, my pictures are better than the professional photo studio, in my opinion, at least. Maybe I'm biased. But you really can take, if you know what you're doing, you know how to do composition, you know how to do, you understand depth of field. Nowadays, you don't even need to understand that. You don't have to do aperture priority. You can just do the portrait mode, and then the thing will just blur out the background. So all my product photography I do on my own, and then I send it to a guy on Fiverr, and I pay him $1 per picture to remove the background. I could do it myself, but I don't know how to use Photoshop. I understand how to use a camera, like the old school camera, but I don't understand how to do photo editing. I can do it, but it'll take me 2 days to edit one picture. And when I was trying to save money, I would photo edit using PowerPoint, which was horrible. So I rather just pay a guy $1 per photo to remove the background. It's faster and it's better. So learn to work with others. The other thing that I work with, for my China sourcing, I do source in China. I use an agent for all my sourcing. I've tried doing it myself, go Alibaba, go wherever, find suppliers, and then ding dong, 50 emails back and forth like a chicken and duck talking. And then when I use an agent, it's faster, it's cheaper, and I don't have to bother with anything. All I do is send one message, and everything is done from order to checking sample to labeling to mailing direct to Amazon FBA. All right. It's the same reason, for example, why I'm collaborating with Meghla, and Meghla collaborates with me, because we are both experts in our own field, but we are not good at what the other person is good at. So in order to scale, the only way is to work with others. And if you want others to work with you in the long run, then don't be a scammy, shady person, right? Which is why I'm the only so-called guru that Meghla sort of works with in Singapore, because in Amazon's words, I quote, I'm the only I'm the only expert Amazon seller in Singapore, in Amazon's opinion, that is not shady. Or not dodgy is the exact word that they used. Okay, number 5, and I'll wrap up with this. It's keep learning and take action. A lot of people get stuck paralysis by analysis. Or a lot of people, they start and then they are already selling a certain X amount, and then they get into a rut, and then they just do this routine every day. I would encourage you to keep learning. Previously, I would drive my daughter to school every morning. It's a 20-minute drive to school and 20-minute drive back, so 40 minutes. And every day, I'm listening to a podcast while I'm driving. And then I will actually take notes mentally, of course. And then if something strikes me, I will actually come back and implement the thing and try it out in my business. And that's how I keep learning, and that's why the thing can keep growing and does not plateau or devolve. All right, so those are a few things just to keep in mind. The rest we'll save for Q&A later. I think I've already talked too long and too much. If you want to find out more, that's my website. And from the website, if you go there on the homepage, you just scroll down halfway down, you'll find a link to this Facebook group. It's a free Facebook group. But if you want to, I've been answering thousands of questions there since 2014. I answer everybody's questions. You can ask the people, some of those who have interacted. Anybody who sends me a private message, I always answer. My wife will attest to that. He's like, what are you doing? Can you like just stop and eat dinner instead of answering these like 10 people concurrently? So yeah, if you want to contact me or whatever, then those are the two avenues. All right, thank you. And oh, yes. Okay, hold on. For Q&A, we have a time after Meghla presents. So if you have a question, hold on to that thought, and then we'll do Q&A as a thing at the end. Yeah, but Meghla was saying, I do run a training class. One of the reasons I do a training class is because people like Man Wai bugged people like her over the years, like bug me like to do a training course because they go attend like some scammy gurus like preview or scammy gurus course, and then say like, can somebody like yourself like do a legitimate thing? So finally, after like 4 years of people bugging me, I started a training class in middle of 2018. Some of the people like Felix and all that, they are here. He's right now full-time. Since the course, I think you've resigned from your day job, right? And now you're full-time online selling. So if you're interested, you can also go to my website and just click from the top menu under the training menu item. I do have a couple of spots left tomorrow and Saturday, Sunday course, and then next week, I think, I can't remember what day even, Wednesday and Thursday. My training comprises of 2 full days in a classroom setting, capped at 15 people. I don't do those 1-200 people like the scammy gurus, because I actually provide one-to-one follow-up, one-on-one consultations with every person after that to help you as you implement, because you learn the theory and then you start taking action. I think if you don't have one-on-one consultation, it's not going to work. Yep, so all right, that's it.
All right, thank you so much, Jason, for that. So I am going to focus more on the sourcing aspects now. So Jason's talked about some of the e-commerce trends. So let me just quickly tell you a bit about myself. Jason is, of course, very famous, but no one knows me. So let me just quickly tell you. I worked with global sources in the sourcing industry for almost 20 years. And I started my career in India. And then I worked in the Philippines. I was based in China for about 10 years, and then I've been in Singapore now. And about 3 years ago, I started organizing e-commerce conferences in Hong Kong for global sources. And recently, I founded this community, the Asian Seller, and also a few of my own initiatives. So I'm not working full-time with global sources anymore. I'm an entrepreneur. Okay, so what exactly is Asian Seller? Real quick. So this is a community that I've formed to help Amazon and e-commerce sellers to start and grow their businesses. I found that there are so many e-commerce sellers over here in Singapore and in Asia who want to start businesses, but there's not a lot of good information available. There are, of course, a lot of courses, but there's no community as such. You know, in the US, there are all these meetups happening, people are collaborating, but I thought that that wasn't happening over here, which is why I started this community. And how do we actually do this? How do we help people to start and grow their business? So first of all, we provide a lot of free content. I've got a podcast at the Asian Seller Podcast. You can go check that out. I interview a lot of e-commerce experts from around the world and provide information. We've got a YouTube channel, then we've got a Facebook and Telegram group where you can come and ask any questions. And then of course we also do meetups over here. So there's a lot of free content that we are offering. And then the other thing that we do is events. So there's a course, of course, Jason mentioned if you want to join the course, then definitely join Jason's course. We're also planning to do workshops moving forward. So these will be like full day workshops on specific topics, for example, photography or listing optimization or Amazon PPC, where we'll really dive into specific topics. And then we're also going to be doing masterminds that's for more advanced sellers. And then we also organize sourcing trips. So there's a trip that we organize to India, and soon we'll be launching a trip to China as well. So those are some of the things that the Asian Seller does. Okay, So let me go into the topic now. So I'm going to be sharing with you 5 strategies that I think are really important for sourcing for e-commerce in 2020. The number one thing that you need to do is diversification. Now, Jason mentioned this a little bit in terms of diversifying your products and your sources, your marketing, your market sources. And I'm specifically going to be talking about diversification of your sourcing markets because that's what I specialize in. So why do you need to diversify? The number one reason, so currently most people are sourcing from China, right? Are you all sourcing from China? Raise your hands if you're sourcing from China. Okay, anybody sourcing from any other country apart from China? Raise your hand. Okay, not bad. So with the trade war between the US and China, a lot of e-commerce sellers, they kind of realized that they cannot put all of their eggs in one basket because their costs increased because there were so many duties and tariffs on products that were imported from China. So that has made people realize that you have to have another market as well in case there is some tension between countries. A lot of companies, actually a lot of bigger brands, they have a China plus one strategy because China is really the only country that can manufacture anything and everything. So a lot of apparel brands, for example, they're sourcing most of their products in China, but they're also sourcing some products in another country like India or Bangladesh, and this has been happening for 5 or 6 years. It's not something new. A lot of the bigger apparel brands and even footwear companies like Nike and all, they've been setting up factories in Vietnam for quite a few years now. And then also it's important to diversify your product lines. If you're just sourcing one product category from China, consider sourcing other products from different countries because not all products are manufactured in other countries, but you can try to look for products that are produced in that specific country. So diversify your product categories as well. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about what are the alternative markets that you can source from and what are the pros and cons of sourcing from these alternative markets. So first of all, in many of the alternative markets, you'll notice that suppliers will be able to accept small MOQs, especially when you're selling on Amazon, you want to test products. You don't want to invest thousands of dollars in one product and then later find out that it's not selling well and you kind of lost all of that money. So it's always a good strategy to buy smaller MOQs and test products before scaling a specific product. And so a lot of the alternative markets like India, Thailand, Indonesia, they do have handcrafted products that you can source from smaller companies, and the MOQs will be quite small over there. So that's one advantage. Another advantage is that there are a lot of differentiated and unique products that you can find in these countries. For example, Indonesia, like Bali, has very beautiful products. India, handcrafted home decor products are quite famous from there. So these kinds of products you might not find in China because they are unique to these alternative markets. And then some countries have better trade relations with the US and EU. For example, Vietnam has a trade deal with the EU. So if you're importing stuff into Europe from Vietnam, there are no taxes at all. So keep those things in mind as well. And then a lot of the raw materials are easily available in many of these countries, especially natural materials. Like India is in fact the second largest producer of cotton in the world after China. And then there are other natural materials like wood or even metal, bamboo, jute. A lot of these materials are available in India, Indonesia, Vietnam. So think about those kinds of products when you're sourcing from alternative markets. You also notice that labor costs are generally lower in these other markets, lower than China. In China, labor costs have been increasing over the last quite a few years, and that's also one reason why some of the low-end production, the labor-intensive production, has been moving out of China. Like the basic garments, like high-end garments and more high-tech products are still manufactured in China, of course, but many companies have been moving out the basic production to other countries where labor costs are lower. And then you'll find that there are more English-speaking suppliers in these countries. Like in India, for example, a lot of the suppliers will speak English, so communication is much easier. Okay, but there are some disadvantages sourcing from these countries that you need to be aware of as well. So first of all, you find in most countries the infrastructure is not as developed as China. For example, the roads, railways or the transportation of products from the factory to the port. The ports themselves are not that advanced. China has been exporting for quite a few decades now and has really focused on their internal infrastructure as well as their export infrastructure. So a lot of these other countries, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, you'll find that the infrastructure and the logistics and all doesn't work as smoothly. Lead times may be longer if you're sourcing from other countries just because they're not that specialized in exports, and a lot of the products are handmade in India, for example, and so the lead times are longer. Also, supply chains may not be that developed. In China, there are production hubs for specific products. For example, there's a city where they'll make all of the lighting products, and the supply chain related to all of the lighting products, like the metal that's needed, or the glass, or all the things that are needed for that product are around that city. The supply chains have developed. There are raw material service providers that can easily supply materials to the factories. But in many other countries, you'll find that that's not the case. They may have to, in fact, import raw materials from China in some cases, or delivery might be slower because supply chains are not developed. And then scalability may be an issue. In China, there are, of course, huge, gigantic factories that can produce thousands of products, have very high capacity. But in many of the countries, India, Vietnam, you find that scalability may be a problem. Vietnam has a lot of large factories. In fact, a lot of Chinese companies are going and investing in Vietnam, setting up factories there on a larger scale. But typically, like maybe India or some other countries, you find that scalability may be an issue, not for all products, but for some products. And then another thing to note is that there are limited product categories that you can source from alternative markets. Like in China, you can practically source anything and everything, but that's not the case for other countries. In India, for example, you can't source electronics really. It's better for apparel, textiles, home decor, home furnishings, those kinds of products. And you can't really source jackets, for example, or any other product that's made from man-made materials or polyester. India is better for cotton-based products. So that's something that you have to consider, limited product categories. Okay, so here's some of the countries that you can consider apart from China. So as I mentioned, no country can replace China currently, but there are a lot of different countries where there are certain categories that are very popular. So for example, India, handcrafted products, textiles, home decor, eco-friendly products is actually a big category in India nowadays. So there are, we had gone to India to attend a trade show in October last year, and we saw these products that were very interesting. There were these disposable plates made from sugarcane waste. So that's very biodegradable and eco-friendly. Those are doing quite well on Amazon. Again, there's these disposable plates made from palm leaves. That's also doing very well on Amazon. If you go search for acacia palm leaf plates on Amazon, you'll see that they're selling quite well. And then we also have superfoods. That's something that's very popular in the US nowadays. So there are these herbs, like turmeric or ashwagandha, or all of these herbs that are kind of quite popular. And then there's some electronics, but not too much. Vietnam, there's furniture, apparel, footwear. In Vietnam, you'll find that there are a lot of larger factories, and they prefer to work with brands or bigger companies. So as an e-commerce seller, sometimes because you want lower MOQs, it may be difficult to work with Vietnam companies. Also Bangladesh, apparel, fabrics, footwear, mostly the fashion products, but again, it's a bit difficult to work with Bangladesh companies, and it's mostly the larger brands that have the resources, that have people, that can send people on the ground, that can work with sourcing agents. But I do know some Amazon sellers who are sourcing from countries like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka as well. So if you can find a good factory, or if you can find a right sourcing partner, then these can be really good. Sri Lanka is another one that's actually not talked about much, and again, it's mostly for apparel and fabrics. So those are some of the countries that you could consider as alternatives for China. Okay, so what's the second sourcing related trend? Production cost optimization. This means that you need to try and lower your production costs, your sourcing costs. That's going to be very critical in 2020, especially because Amazon fees are increasing. Did everybody know that? Who knew that Amazon fees are increasing? Raise your hands. Okay, now many people. So Amazon fees are increasing in 2020, and this is something that you have to keep in mind. And then of course there are tariffs that have been imposed. So in case your product is affected by tariffs, your sourcing costs will be higher. And there's increased competition on Amazon, which means that you need to be price competitive. In some cases you'll have to lower your price to compete with other people or to get the buy box. So you are going to face more pressures in terms of costs. So what are the ways in which you can reduce production costs? Here are some suggestions. First of all, alternative markets. Especially if your product is affected by tariffs, then you should consider sourcing in alternative markets. You will be able to save a bit of money over there. Also consider signing an NNN with your supplier for a longer term, because suppliers, they want to know that you are a long-term buyer. And if they know that they can get a lot of business from you for months or years to come, they'll be more willing to negotiate with you and lower the price or give you better payment terms or give you better lead times. So as much as possible, try to work with your supplier as a partner and work with them for the long term. You also need to make sure that you build a relationship with the supplier. And this is really important not only in China, but also in India. Does everybody know what is guanxi? Yeah? Okay. So yeah, guanxi is important in China and it's very important in India as well. And the better relationship that you have with your supplier, they'll be more flexible with you. Also review your bill of materials. When you're sourcing a product, then see if there's a material that can be replaced or if there's a function or feature that can be changed to reduce the price. So that's something that you should be doing on an ongoing basis, but I think it's going to be even more important in 2020. And then packaging, if how much are you spending on packaging? Are you doing very high, fancy packaging? You're spending a lot. Is there any way that you can actually reduce the cost of packaging? Also, it's a good idea to have backup suppliers in case your current supplier increases its price, or they have some issues with the supplier, or they get a really big customer and they don't prioritize your orders. It's always a good idea to have a backup supplier so that you can always switch your production to the other supplier. This is another very important thing that you should do: negotiate with your suppliers. Whether you're sourcing from India or China, suppliers expect you to negotiate. So they usually have a buffer built into the price when they quote it to you. But of course, don't negotiate on the trial order. Like if you're sourcing like 10 pieces, don't negotiate then. But once you're starting to scale, once you're ordering hundreds of pieces, that's the time when you start to negotiate and try to get better prices. And then suppliers need to see that they have a long-term business potential with you. That's really important for suppliers. And once they know that, then they'll be willing to work with you and reduce prices. Also important to note is that you have to negotiate with the boss in India or China or anywhere where you're sourcing from. Usually when you're sourcing from China, you're talking to a sales agent, or you're not directly talking to the factory boss. But once you start scaling and once you start ordering in higher volumes, then there is a need to negotiate, then you need to go higher and talk to the boss directly. Also, face-to-face negotiation is ideal if possible. Go visit them at a trade show if they're exhibiting at Canton Fair, or if they have a factory somewhere. Go visit them and go out for dinners with them and build a relationship with the supplier. That is really, really helpful when you're trying to negotiate. Another thing to keep in mind is that price is not the only thing that you can negotiate for. You can negotiate for payment terms. Payment terms just means that how much advance you're paying them, how much advance you're paying the supplier. And sometimes suppliers also give credit. Once you've established a relationship with the supplier, they will, and you've placed a couple of orders with the same supplier, they will give you credit as well. And Amazon is, of course, a cash flow business, right? You need to make sure that you have cash flow in this business. So, okay, so those are some of the things, those are some of the ways in which you can negotiate with your supplier. Another thing to consider is reduce your logistics costs. This is something that people don't consider. Now, there is a company called Unicargo. Is anyone familiar with Unicargo over here? Have you heard of this name? Anyone? Raise your hand. No one? Okay. So Unicargo is basically a freight forwarder, and they're a very Amazon-focused freight forwarder. Now, what they do is they consolidate shipments from various Amazon sellers and then put them into a container and then send them to different Amazon fulfillment centers on a daily basis. So if you have like 10 boxes that are going to a particular fulfillment center, they will combine all of the other boxes from other Amazon sellers into the container and send it to that fulfillment center. So you're kind of you're getting an advantage of sending bulk shipments in, by the container load. So definitely check out this company, Unicargo. And they ship from any country actually, India, China, Thailand, Vietnam. So I think you should definitely, they have a good blog also where they provide good information. Also negotiate with your freight forwarder, especially when you're placing orders on a consistent basis. Sometimes we think that, oh, we can't really negotiate with the freight forwarder, right? I mean, with the supplier you can, but freight forwarder, whatever price they've given us, that's it. But that's not true. You can actually negotiate with them as well. Okay, number 3, more suppliers will be your competitors, more manufacturers. So China suppliers, of course, are already selling on Amazon, right? There are a lot of suppliers. Has anybody over here, have you seen your own supplier from China selling products on Amazon? Yeah? And of course, because they produce a product themselves, they offer it at a lower price, and then they just outbeat you, right? So this is a trend that will continue. India suppliers are also interested in selling on Amazon, but currently not a lot of them are doing it. But this is a trend that will continue. In fact, Amazon is encouraging this themselves. When we were in India, then we found out that there were Amazon representatives going to the booths and recruiting manufacturers, recruiting suppliers to sell on Amazon directly. And they're doing the same in China. So they want to make it easier and cheaper for consumers. They want to make products cheaper for consumers, and so that's why they're trying to cut out the middleman and go straight to the factory. So this is a trend that will continue. You got to be aware of it. But there are ways to cope with this, and there are advantages that we have as third-party sellers that suppliers don't have. So how to cope with this problem? First of all, sign very strong NNNs to deter suppliers. Does everybody know what is an NNN? Raise your hand if you know what an NNN is. No? It's basically a contract that you sign with your supplier. It's non-compete, non-disclosure, non-circumvent, right? Yeah. So basically, it's a contract that you sign with your supplier where you're telling them that they can't disclose your products to other buyers, they can't copy your product, and what's circumvent? Basically this. So you want to make sure that you sign this contract with your supplier. Now, sometimes when you're sourcing in China and these contracts are not enforceable, or it's difficult to enforce the contract, especially when you're not based in China. But what this does is that it deters suppliers. That's what it does. And I've also noticed that in India, suppliers are typically more respectful of these contracts. And there was this one supplier that I was talking to recently, and she had one Amazon seller that she was selling to, and this Amazon seller said that, hey, I'm going to be giving you big orders, but don't work with any other Amazon sellers, and they signed a contract. And this supplier didn't do that, She could have slyly gone and worked with another Amazon seller, but she said, no, I can't, I've signed a contract. So I feel that they are more respectful, especially the export-focused suppliers. They are more professional, not the suppliers that manufacture mostly for the domestic market. Also, you have to develop brands with stories. That is something that is not copyable. Jason also mentioned that you have to develop a brand, and it seems very, it seems really scary. Like, how am I supposed to build a brand? Like, Nike is a brand. But that's not necessary. I mean, what you need to do is build a brand in a small way. Whatever product you have, like Jason has soaps, that's what he specializes in, and that's his brand. There's this case study that you should definitely look up. Search for Mike Jackness, and his podcast is called the Ecom Crew Podcast, or Ecom Crew Podcast, and his website is ecomcrew.com. And he built this community. First of all, he built this website and he was selling products. these were adult coloring books, or no, coloring books for adults, and also painting supplies and pen supplies. And what he did was he built a community of people who liked to color. And he had, like a Facebook group, and he would do Facebook Lives with them, and they would do contests and engage with the community. And that's something that suppliers cannot do. So there were a lot of people who copied his products, but they couldn't copy, or they couldn't take away the community and the brand value, right? And the brand affinity. So that's something that you have to try and do. Also build relationships with suppliers, as I mentioned. I think that will certainly help deter them. When you have a better relationship with the supplier, they're kind of less likely to compete with you. Also stay ahead in marketing. This is something that suppliers are not very good at. I mean, they specialize in production, in manufacturing. Of course, they can hire people, and they are doing that. They are hiring experts, especially in China to do their Amazon. But and of course, in China, they're doing a lot of black hat tactics and all. That's very difficult to compete with. But as much as possible, stay away from all of the black hat, gray hat. Just focus on white hat, because Amazon will definitely come after you if you do any black hat. So yeah, just stay on top of marketing, PPC. Use other channels like Pinterest. We recently did a webinar with somebody who talked about how to use Pinterest to drive traffic to your Amazon listing or to your Shopify store. That is huge. Just use that and try to understand how that works. Okay, number 4, responsible sourcing. Now, what does this mean? So Amazon is increasingly focusing a lot on product safety. There have been quite a few articles published in Wall Street Journal and other newspapers that have blamed Amazon of selling subpar, sub-quality products. And because of this, Amazon has been focusing a lot on quality recently. So what's important for you to do is to source products that are safe and that are compliant with all of the regulations. And the number one thing to do is just be aware of the regulations and requirements in the country that you're selling into. Sometimes, as sellers, because we are not, familiar with rules in other countries, we think, oh no, this should be fine to sell. There shouldn't be any, regulations. But it's the importer's duty. It's your responsibility to know about all of the, regulations and certifications that are required for selling any product. Especially if it's a product that is for kids or babies, or it touches the skin, or it's ingested, or it's used to eat. Those are the kinds of products that usually have more certifications. And how to find the certifications or regulations for a product? One, just do a Google search. Like, all of this information is available online. But you can also reach out to some inspection companies like QIMA, QIMA. They are an inspection company. And if you reach out to them and you ask them that, hey, I want to import this product into the US, can you tell me what are the requirements and the regulations? And they usually have like ready documents, and they can surely help you out with that. For mostly it's free of charge. And then if you are doing a product that requires some testing and certificates, as much as possible, do the testing yourself. Suppliers will give you a certificate, but it might be fake, it might be old, it might not be for the same product. So if you are in a category that has some regulations, and if you are scaling your business, this is more important when you're kind of scaling a bit and going to the next level. If you're sourcing 10 pieces, then you probably can get away with it. But when you're scaling, then it's higher risk for you as well. Like, if somebody is injured or gets hurt using your product, then you have liability issues. Yeah, don't source substandard products. If you're sourcing a product and a supplier offers you like a really, really low price, that's too good to be true, stay away. There's probably some quality issues over there. Also, as much as possible, try to know your factory and what are the working conditions of the workers. Are they sourcing sustainable materials, and are they any environmental issues? It's not easy to do, especially when you're just starting out. But again, once you are growing a little bit and you're sourcing in higher volumes, and this is something that you should definitely do. Also, this is really, really, really important, and Jason mentioned this as well. Treat this as a real business. This is not like a side hustle. It starts as a side hustle, But even as a side hustle, you got to treat it as a business because you want it to replace your current income, your 9-to-5 job, but it is a real business. If anybody tells you all you need is one product and you'll be making millions, that is not true. Run away from them as fast as you can. Really, there are so many like gurus out there who will, sell this dream to people, but it's not true. And if you think this is a get-rich-quick scheme, then don't come to my next meetup. Really, this is not it. You need a lot of hard work. Okay, the fifth thing that I think is really important, and we had talked about this a little bit at the meetup that we had with Tim. Who attended the meetup with Tim, the workshop? Okay, cool, quite a few people. So do you remember he had talked about sourcing in smaller quantities? I think that's going to be really important, and that's something that, it's not a new trend as such, but I feel that as Amazon sellers, that's something that we should continue to do. So for those of you who did not attend Tim's workshop, go search for the Asian seller on YouTube and look for Tim Jordan's video. We've actually recorded the whole 2.5-hour workshop and uploaded it on YouTube. It was very interesting. He gave ideas on how to search for products and how to get new ideas and how to look for product ideas off of Amazon. It's a lot of good information. Yeah, so it's risky to source in higher quantities when you're starting out. You can do a lot of research. You can do, Helium 10, Jungle Scout, all of those tools. But at the end of the day, you really don't know if a product will sell or not on Amazon until you test it, until you do your, PPC and you see what kind of clicks you get, what kind of sales you're getting. So the best approach, in my view, and Tim agrees with that, and I think Jason has kind of a similar approach, is to go wide instead of deep. So start with a few different product categories, a few different products, source smaller quantities of each, send them to Amazon, test them, and then go slow. Okay. Also, what happens is when you go wide, then you are staying under the radar of hijackers or Chinese. Okay, maybe all of them are not Chinese, but most of them are like the black hat techniques. You're kind of staying under their radar because they're going after the products that are selling in the millions. Because they don't want the products that are selling like 10 pieces per day or something like that. But if you have 10 products that each sell 10 pieces a day, then it's a more stable business. You're diversified, your product line is diversified, you're staying under the radar, they're not going to come after you because you're just selling 10 pieces. And it's kind of sustainable because it's not a lot for one product, but across all different product categories, across all different products, you'll be able to earn like a decent income. Okay, so how to test source? So first of all, you can negotiate smaller MOQs when you're sourcing online. If you go on Alibaba, and we were talking about this a little bit, right? So when you go on Alibaba, you'll find that the MOQs will be quite high. But there are ways to negotiate smaller quantities, especially if you talk to 10 different suppliers, maybe one of them will come back to you and maybe they'll say that, okay, I have this product in black that I can offer you in smaller quantities, but not in red. For example, maybe they have it in stock, maybe it's an overrun from another buyer's order, or for whatever reason they can offer a specific product, type or like a variation of that product in smaller quantities. So it's always good to just ask them, even if they are claiming on their website that their MOQ is like 1,000, 3,000. I found that once you start talking to them, then it is possible, not all times, but it is sometimes possible to get lower MOQs. So to give you an example, I was in the Hong Kong exhibition, the Global Sources exhibition in October. There was this company that was making these lunch boxes that was made from some biodegradable kind of eco-friendly product, and of course the MOQs were very high, but they said that for a particular shape that's not very fancy, it's very simple, they could do like 50 pieces or 100 pieces, right? So I think once you start talking to suppliers, and you have to like talk to many suppliers to be able to get those smaller MOQs. It is possible though. Also trading companies, trading companies typically source from different manufacturers, so you can try sourcing from a trading company. Also, when you're just starting out, when you're testing products, don't do a lot of customization. Just do very basic branding, whatever is the bare minimum, just do that. For example, don't put your logo on the product, just put an insert or something, inside with your brand. Like, don't go very fancy with the packaging, don't print your own packaging, just use like a white box with a sticker on it, with your logo or your company name or your information. So there are ways to start small without like investing a lot. Yeah, also, as I mentioned, alternative markets, India, Vietnam, Thailand. Esti is sourced from Thailand, right? Yeah, she actually went to a trade fair over there, and then she saw some products from Thailand. Raj is sourcing from India and Vietnam. You were in Vietnam recently. So these alternative markets are coming up very fast, and I mean, all of you guys have easy access to these markets because they're so close by. So consider those. And then there are wholesale markets such as Yiwu and Guangzhou. How many of you have heard of Yiwu? Raise your hands. How many of you have been to Yiwu? Okay, quite a few. Yeah, so there are like wholesale markets like Yiwu where there are wholesalers, there are resellers, there are manufacturers. They also have stock, ready stock for certain products, and so you can in some cases buy smaller quantities. In some cases you can also source from different shops, like 10 pieces of this, 10 pieces of this, 20 pieces of this, and then get it consolidated, and there are shipping agents over there who will consolidate all of the things for you in one shipment and send it to Amazon FBA. In fact, a lot of e-commerce sellers are sourcing from Yiwu, and there are sourcing agents that specialize in Amazon FBA shipments and labeling and packaging and all of those things. So it's quite easy to source in Yiwu. Jason sources from Yiwu as well. Okay, so that was the presentation. I just want to quickly tell you a little bit about India sourcing trip in case anyone's interested. So the next trip is coming up in April 13th to the 20th. So this is basically a learning, sourcing, and cultural guided tour. We go to an export-focused fair in India called the Indian Handicrafts and Gifts Fair that has about 3,000 exhibitors of mostly home decor items, furnishings, some apparel, eco-friendly products, furniture, those kinds of products. And most of the attendees are sellers from US, Australia. We had a couple of sellers from Singapore in October. And what we do is we teach how to source from India. So we do a one-day conference. Over there you see that's a photo of the conference that we did. So we have various sourcing experts who come and talk about how to find suppliers, how to vet suppliers, how to negotiate, how to do logistics from China, from India. And then we also have some top e-commerce coaches, like Tim Jordan is a mentor on the trip. And then we have some people from Australia who actually guide people on how to find Amazonable products at the trade show. So we do a guided tour where we take people around and we say, oh, this might be good at on Amazon, this might not be good. So, and then there's a lot of one-on-one time that you can get with the coaches if you have any questions about your business. So, you can get a lot of one-on-one time. And then there's also some cultural immersion. We do a cultural program with a dance troupe. We go to Taj Mahal, and we just basically have a lot of fun. So yeah, in case you're interested, you can go to indiasourcingtrip.com to check it out and get more information. Okay, so that is it. Thank you very much. So now we can take questions. And if you have any questions for Jason or for me, just, yeah, let me know. Yeah, that one. Indiasourcingtrip.com. Can't be easier. Sorry? Oh, this one? Yeah. Yeah, if you go to the website, there's also a video. Yeah. The website has a video of what we did there and everything. I also have a Facebook group in case anyone's interested. Search for India Sourcing for Amazon FBA. And I do like live webinars and all sorts of things over there. There's one scheduled for tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. as well. Yeah. Okay, so what questions do you guys have? Especially for Jason. I'm sure there are a lot of questions for Jason. The last time we did a meetup with Jason, I think the Q&A was for 1 hour. Yeah. Sorry, he raised. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, keywords and fundamentals.
So you say that you focus on the keywords and not so much on the giveaway.
Jason, I think you should come closer to the mic.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So I want to know about your keywords, how you focus. Did you use the keywords to find the supply and demand, pick the product, or do you look at the keyword that put into your listing on the title? Or you focus more on PPC? What's your strategy for the keywords?
All of the above. Can you all hear did you all hear his question? So how I use keywords is, the starting point is by doing research and analysis of keywords where there is some search demand, but especially where there's low or weak competition. I don't mind if the demand for search volume for keywords is very low, as long as I can have a lot of keywords. For example, one of my better selling listings, it is currently indexed on Amazon for about 2,500 different keyword phrases. Some of them might generate very, very low traffic or search volume, but when you add all those together, the sum of that is quite sizable. So for me, the main thing is, number one, identify low competition keywords. Once I identify those low competition keywords, then I use those to optimize my listing, which was your second point. I only use one tool now. I only use Helium 10, which is not so much a tool as a suite of tools. I have tried everything. I've used Viral Launch, their top tier plan. I have been sponsored by Seller Labs. I have Jungle Scout lifetime membership because I was the first batch beta tester when Greg started Jungle Scout. And I no longer use any of them. The only one I actually use is Helium 10. So my ethos is I will not recommend anything unless I use it myself. And the reason why I like Helium 10 so much is because it has everything integrated into one suite. And also when I compared it with Viral Launch, Jungle Scout, etc., and some others like Unicorn Smasher, AMZ Owl or whatever, it's such. There are two ways. One is X-ray. X-ray looks at, when you're on a listing search results page, how many estimated sales per listing. The other thing that is more important to me is using Helium 10's Cerebro and Magnet tools to generate lists of related keywords. Which brings us to our third point. Second point, how do I optimize? I usually tell people, before I would even select anything to go and look for a product, I want to have at least minimum 5 keywords I've shortlisted where I'm fairly confident it will be very easy for me to get onto page 1 for. If I start like that, the moment I launch my listing, it's quite, well, I wouldn't say quite common, but sometimes it happens that it has happened actually where, because I've done this research, identified low competition keywords, I've optimized them into my title, etc. And then I order the stuff and then it gets shipped. I don't even bother to track. There was once I didn't bother to track the shipping, and then I just asked my supplier, I said, hey, by the way, when's the shipment going to be delivered? And he said, oh, you didn't know it was delivered last week. Then said, here's a tracking number again. And like, oh, really? And then I went and logged into my Amazon account and saw that I had been making a couple of sales every day. I had not even run PPC yet. It just started generating impressions, clicks, and conversions or sales because it was optimized for low competition keywords and was already on page 1 and 2 of multiple keyword terms. So then the same thing applies. Then I do the same thing. I use the same bunch of keywords and I run Amazon PPC or sponsored ads. The reason is because I want to generate as many sales as possible from as many keywords as possible, because every impression, click, and then sale or conversion that comes from a keyword causes the search engine to understand that this sale is attributed to that keyword. And so each click and each sale then helps me to climb organically. And so over time, I generate a lot more sales both through sponsored ads and also from organic rank. Yep, she asked for sorry. Sure, I have certain parameters. Yeah, I don't stick hard and fast to them. Usually I start off with like search volume 200 and competing products 1000. In general, I start off like that. I might adjust up and down depending on the results. Yeah, so like I say, if you have 1000 keyword phrases that have like 200 search volume each, that's still, I always say that's better than having one keyword with 20,000 search volume that like 10,000 other sellers are competing for. Yeah.
Jason, I just want to say thank you for sharing e-commerce strategy for 2020.
Hmm?
Honestly, it's not that 2020, these are
Yep.
for success.
Exactly.
2021, 2022.
Yes, exactly. Fundamentals are here for the long
Yeah,
haul.
these are fundamental. But actually, I want to expand what you were saying.
Mm.
That actual, let's not go into the intent. I have so many questions about that. But let me give you a scenario.
Yeah.
One of the most searched words, thermos flask.
Mm-hmm.
50 suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
500,000 purchases a month, sorry.
Sure.
Versus camping can pegs, not very many, 2 suppliers, 10,000 people a month. Which do you go for, or how do we judge that?
Sure. My answer is I will go for the one with low competition. Let me tell you why. When Amazon first opened their global selling office here, their first global selling manager, now they're into their third guy, he called me up and said, Jason, there's this Bluetooth manufacturer in Singapore, and they have not been doing very well on Amazon, like 5 sales in the last 2 or 3 years. So like, would you be interested like providing them, like be a consultant to them? So I said, okay, I'll just go check it out. So I did some research on Bluetooth speakers. At that time, when you type Bluetooth speakers into Amazon, it would return 156,000 listings. I went to their office. It was a bunch of 3 guys just graduated from Singapore Poly or something, and one uncle from China. I said, when you type Bluetooth speakers, look at the results. It's Bose, JBL, companies like that, who speakers are going for a couple of $100, $400, and they are happy to pay $10, $20, $30 per click. Your speaker, unknown brand, I said like, okay, 156,000. I don't think there's anything that you can realistically do with the budget that you have to be able to compete against these guys. So I always tell people I'd rather be the big fish in many small ponds than be the tiny fish in the huge ocean, because you'll just get swallowed up. Unless you have some like really unique thing that you can pitch with. So like at that time, several years ago, I asked them, so for example, is your Bluetooth speaker waterproof? At least people can bring it to the beach or they hang it in the shower or something. They said, no. And like, so what's special about your Bluetooth speaker? Same thing, for example, if you want to go into the coffee niche, coffee has huge demand in the States. Average American statistics, they drink 4 cups of coffee a day. I probably top that. But if you want to sell a coffee in the US, it's not easy unless, again, you are able to target some very specific niche using specific keywords. So for example, our collective, we have a collective consultancy. One of the guys in our group, he has a coffee called Death Wish Coffee. If you search on Amazon, it's easily always like they have a couple of listings in the top 10 selling coffees on Amazon. But they have a unique selling point, and that's that their coffee has double the caffeine content. And also, you must be willing to do other stuff. For example, for them, the key point that led to their success was influencer marketing. He sent out 400 packs of coffee to 400 influencers. Out of the 400 influencers, approximately 20 bothered to reply and do something about it. So again, it depends on what you're prepared to do, what your skill sets are. Like, are you okay working with influencers? If you are, then sure, you can go after something that's higher competition and higher demand. If you are, like for me, I'm a more data-driven kind of, that's how I process things. So I prefer to go after things that I can tangibly analyze that the competition is low. That I know, which is why like the 8 listings that I launched in October, every single one of them sold anywhere from 100 to 300 units in 2 to 4 weeks. For me, I'm happy with that. It's not like selling thousands of units per month. But when you add that all together, that's still, I'm happy.
What's the secret of this analysis? I mean, what do you look for?
Low competition.
So,
Meaning when I type a keyword into Amazon, there are the results that come up are either irrelevant, very poorly done, hardly anything that is, it's not even like the first page of Amazon, let's say 16 to 32 listings to 48, maybe you scroll down, by the 10th listing is not even the thing anymore. Or you see no ads being run for that keyword. It's hard to explain like in like 5 minutes here. Like even with a corporate client, it often takes me like 10 hours to explain it to somebody who's SEO certified sometimes. Like to go into all the details, yeah, but that's the gist of it. Mhm. Well, if you see that that particular product type is flooded with low price listings, then it'll probably be hard to sell that at any kind of like reasonable profit margin, then avoid that product. Unless you can brand yours as premium. Maybe if again, it's case by case, depend on the product. Like certain products, let's say they are made in China, and then it's also like, let's say made in Australia or made in USA. If you get yours made in USA, then you could possibly sell at 50%, 100%, double the price, triple the price. But because it's made in USA, you are able to capture part of that market. Yeah.
Question on the PPC sponsor ads.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do auto ads as well as phrase and blog?
Yes.
When you think about phrase and blog, isn't it a repetition?
In the past, I used to think like that. So in the past, I would run primarily exact match and a few phrase match. Nowadays, for every listing that I have, I run exact, phrase, and broad, as well as at least 4 auto campaigns, all separately. And the reason I do that is because they all hit different segments or searches, and also because it makes it easier for me to analyze. Logically, I would think like, okay, if I did it, you all understand what's the difference between exact, phrase, and broad match? Anybody not clear? Some of y'all like look really puzzled.
Yeah.
Okay, essentially, if let's say I sell orange juice, so if I ran an ad and I can bid on an exact match, meaning somebody must type orange juice, search orange juice in order for my ad to possibly appear before them to click. If I did phrase match, as long as part of the thing is inside partially, then it would appear. For example, if they did orange juice packet, then the phrase I'm bidding on, I bid phrase for orange juice because orange juice is part of orange juice packets. Then that would also potentially appear. If it was exact, then it wouldn't appear. And then broad is as long as one of the words sort of matches. So for example, if I bid on orange juice broad match, but somebody typed orange t-shirt, then my orange juice will appear as well. In the past, I used to think that I used to do only exact. Now I do broad, phrase, exact, and I replicate the exact same words across these 3 manual campaigns. I also run recently, late last year, Amazon rolled out like 4 types of auto campaigns, complementary keywords, the substitutes, close match and loose match. So I also run 4 concurrent using all the match types. I also run these 4 match types times 3, meaning I do a bid, one campaign would be 25% higher than the median. One campaign would be at median bid price and one campaign at lower bid price. At the same time, I go to Cerebro, which is one of the tools in Helium 10. I put my listing into Cerebro, then it will come out with like 1,000 to 2,000 keywords typically. I copy and paste the entire column, and I just run a 20-something cent ad on all those super long tail keywords. So doing that, I've seen my advertising cost of sale, come down quite significantly over the last few months. And my sales from ads has also increased quite significantly. Yeah, it's a bit more detailed than that, but essentially that's what I do. Okay, that's a common question. What's your budget recommended for a campaign? Because I run so many small campaigns, my budget per campaign is pretty low. It's anywhere, I start off from typically $6 to $8, maybe $10 per campaign. But again, remember I'm running like 10, 20 campaigns per listing all the time. That makes it very easy for me to manage and cut the losses and then also bump up. So like some that are converting very well, like let's say single digit or like in the teens, like 15% ACoS. What then I might do is, depending again on the demand and what Amazon suggests, some of them are running like $50 budget per day. But then if they are getting an ACoS of like 12%, then I'm happy with that. Yeah. Yep.
Can I ask you a question about reviews? How do you launch a new product with zero reviews?
Okay, everybody launches a listing with 0 reviews, right?
Do you use any tactics like ManyChat or in-page giveaway?
In the past, you can do the giveaway. I've done that before, like Jungle Scout, Seller Labs, they all have like these like promo deal sites. Nowadays, for a couple of years now, you can't do that. Amazon has been proactively deleting reviews recently also. So what I do now is the only thing I do to get reviews is I subscribe to the early reviewer program for every listing that I launch. I don't even bother to do follow-up emails with people anymore. I find that it's not worth my effort. I would say mostly yes. Most of them get the first 2, 3, 4, 5 reviews quite fast. I have on occasion had one product where I was like, whoa, no reviews at all, and I sold out the entire stock of my test shipment of 100 sets. Then only after the 100th set was sold, and then a couple of reviews came in. But then that's fine, right? So back to the fundamental, because I picked a low competition product with many low competition keywords, even though I had 0 reviews, because I'm the only guy offering this thing. So everybody who's looking for this thing, like essentially more or less buys mine. Maybe there's a couple of other listings that are similar. So if you focus on the fundamentals of going for low competition stuff, then people are looking for those things and nobody else is supplying them. Then so what if you start off with 0 reviews? It's not, people have no other choice, right? They'll just buy yours anyway. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The keywords you choose are the ones with low competition, or the main ones, so-called.
Sure, good question. Yep. Sure, understand. You all understand the question? So like which keywords do I choose to put in a title? Is it the really low competition ones, or like actually what I go for is a balance? So let's say I've shortlisted 20 keywords that I'm targeting to rank for as my primary keywords. I will generally pick, let's say, realistically 3 to 5 that can fit into the title, because usually beyond that the title becomes too clunky. I always make sure that the title is readable to a human, okay? It has to be good copywriting still. So I will pick usually those that have pretty decent search volume. By decent, I would say anywhere from most of the time it's like 500 to 2,000. I have people who I've trained or coached, and then they say like, whoa, that's like really low. And then they said, I'm not going to listen to your suggestion, I'm just going to try, I don't care. And then they go do like some recyclable straw thing, stainless steel straw that has 30,000, 50,000 search volume. And then like they try everything under the sun to try to generate sales, and they can't because the competition is just too much. So I put the most important like 3 to 5 with a good balance of having some decent demand, plus minus like 2,000 I would say, as well as there's low competition. And then all the other keywords, let's say the 15 others, I will sprinkle it around the key product features, aka bullet points, and also the description. At the same time, if anything cannot go into the title, then you put it in the back-end search terms, which is the keywords tab and then the search terms box. For those, I tend to do misspellings and also Spanish words.
You duplicate little keywords in title.
In, let's say, the description. Sometimes, if it's natural, but don't keyword stuff, okay? Don't avoid like stuffing it unnaturally.
What about in the back end?
Don't repeat words in the back end that you already have in the title. Recently, one of my coaching students, his listing got suspended because Amazon said he had a word that was duplicate, that was already in his title, he put in the back end. I've never seen that happen before. That's the first I've heard. Yep.
And may I ask, if you wanted to look for new products,
Mhm.
you will continuously look for new products for launches, right?
Yep.
And you will go wide first.
Yep.
Let's say you found like 10 products,
Yep.
and you just want to buy like 10 or 20 pieces. Do you go for China, or do you want to look for exotic markets?
Okay, sure. So let's say you have shortlisted some potential product idea, and you don't want to take too much risk. Honestly, one way is, for example, I had this guy, I'll just make up some product. I actually really had this client from Cambodia, and he wanted to test like a product. So let's say it's a pillow, okay? Being in Cambodia, he didn't want to ship stuff internationally. So I said, just create a listing first, go on Amazon itself, look for a pillow that is similar to like what you want to sell, but it's not like printed on the product, it's just printed on the packaging, the branding. Order like a handful of those, send it to a prep center in the US, take it out of the box, and then put it back into a plain bag or box, and then ship it in to test. Any of you all heard of the guy Ryan Rieger? Some of you have heard the name. He is the one who wrote the private label course for the Proven Amazon course. So Ryan is I would say a friend of mine. I've stayed in his house before. Ryan's first product, from which he generated 800K in his first year on Amazon, was selling mattress protectors. What he did was he approached the supplier who was selling a branded mattress protector, and he literally said, is it okay if I buy your mattress protector? And you know how they're packaged in a typical plastic zip case, right? And then there's just this piece of card or a piece of paper with the branding. That's it. So he asked the supplier, would it be okay with you if I remove your card and I put in my own piece of paper? The supplier said, sure, I don't care, as long as I can sell stuff to you. So that's what he did. That's all. Home printer, insert into the existing transparent zip case, and we were selling at like $50+ each. So to answer your question about testing quantity, that's one option. Just go by existing retail if you want to test a handful. What I often do nowadays is, if let's say I'm ordering from overseas, I will look at how much I realistically think I can sell in a month. So how I do that is, I go onto the first page of like various keywords related to this product on Amazon. I look for those similar listings with 0 or single-digit reviews, meaning they are also new listings with very low social proof. And then I use, like you can use any tool like Jungle Scout, X-Ray, Helium 10 X-Ray or whatever. to look at the estimated sales, just to get a ballpark. Again, these are not exact numbers, like plus, minus 20, 30%. If you have like 2 or 3 of these, then you see like, oh, this guy with 0 stars, 0 reviews does like 100 sales per month. That one with like 2 reviews does like 150. There's another guy 0 with 50 sales per month estimated. Then I know the ballpark is like 50 to 150, 100 plus minus. Then I know my first order, I'm not going to order like 2,000. Because there are people who attend like other Scammy Gurus courses, they go order like a container load 20,000 pieces. And then they come to me after that and they say like, help us to sell this thing. I'm like, the entire market demand for your product is like 10 pieces per month, total. You have 5,000. There's no way to clear your stock realistically. Yep, so hope that answers the question.
So it doesn't matter which market actually, right? When we test the product, it
Yep.
doesn't matter.
Yep.
But if we want to scale it, do we look for China or alternative market?
Depending on what you're sourcing and what kind of product. Like for example, my skincare, none of it's made in China because, I mean, I wouldn't use it. So like, that's not where I would source it. I would only source my skincare, let's say Australia and the US. And then in the past, for example, I was selling some herbal teas. Then that's very obvious from India. And then if like you were sourcing like green tea, then sure go, like in Singapore, there's going to be a Food and Hospitality Asia trade show. I don't know, I've been getting the mails. I've attended it a couple of times. Like you can go walk the trade show. It's free to register now. When it's 2 weeks before a trade show, it's going to be $80 probably. I walked in the Japanese section the last time, and essentially everybody there's selling green tea. I asked the guy, do you supply blah, blah, blah? And he says, oh, you sell Amazon. Here, then he took out his brochure. We can private label. Rather, he was saying private label. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so really it depends on what you're selling. Like if it was certain types of like cloth material, then India would be a great place to source it. Just depends on what.
Jacket or something that's polyester or nylon or
Yeah, then India would not be the
or
right.
PU.
Mm.
Those kinds of things. Of course,
Synthetic
are China.
materials.
Synthetic materials, yeah, those are of course China.
Yeah. Freight, yeah? Uh-huh. There might be some marginal increase. Again, because the increase in the tax is it depends on your category of goods. It's impossible to say because like if you know commodity codes, right, there are thousands of harmonized commodity codes. Like when I import into the UK, for example, I have to go onto the UK's like commodity code HMRC, which is the UK's Her Majesty's Revenue or something. To check what's the commodity code. So the same thing in the US. If I wanted to find out, I would talk to a US customs broker. Yeah, they would be the ones most familiar with that. Sorry, Raj, you had a question.
So I looked at the system regarding the reviews. You know, recently upon the wine program.
Yes.
How is it different from the ERP?
Okay, so ERP is not the road thing. So that's the early reviewer program in case some of you are not familiar. So Vine program is Amazon has this list of like curated reviewers. The difference between ERP, early reviewer program, and Vine is the early reviewer program is available to everyone. Vine is by invitation only. The other thing is ERP, you have to pay for it. I'm not sure about Vine whether you have to pay for it. I haven't used Vine personally myself. But the early reviewer program, how it works is when you have a listing, if you have less than 5 reviews, then you are eligible. You go into advertising, drop-down menu, there's an early reviewer program. You click on that, and then Amazon will ask you select the listings, the ASINs that you want to run ERP for. Then the cost is $60, but they will only charge the 60 to you when Amazon helps you get the first review in. So what happens once you subscribe to the ERP is Amazon will send out follow-up emails to the customer, so you don't have to send the follow-up emails. And Amazon will offer a gift card, Amazon gift card, a voucher in Singapore language. They'll offer an Amazon gift card, like $5 or whatever, if the customer leaves a review. So that's perfectly legal in the Amazon ecosystem. Any other kind of incentivized review outside the ERP is considered illegal to Amazon. Yeah, so for me, I just use the ERP. Why don't you talk to her? They do corporate also, right? Y'all do corporate insurance, right? Okay, if you go on to the Facebook group, there are few companies. You search product insurance in the My Silent Team SG Facebook group. There are at least 3 or 4 companies now there that provide that. Yeah, they are Singapore insurance companies.